Prime Minister has now inaugurated the AI Impact, and this is the expo that we're talking about. We're getting live visuals on our screens. Now, the Prime Minister looking quite keen. He's quite interested in going to all the kiosks one by one, taking a look at all the gizmos and gadgets. He loosely translated it to I. He said, India mein sare bacche I ke वजह से ही बड़ा होते हैं, which is why AI is the word here, and this is the biggest AI summit, and India is leading the way.
Absolutely. In fact, what is interesting is while India is hosting the AI Summit and it has started, the fact is that the Prime Minister in several global platforms has been talking about AI and particularly responsible use of AI right from the beginning. He's been talking about this, whether it was in the United States, whether it was in several platforms. Responsible AI really, Kabir, has been at the heart of what Prime Minister has been talking. And he's also been talking about how it cannot be developed countries or a conglomerate of certain countries who have the right access to just AI. So equitable distribution, Kabir, has been at the heart of what Prime Minister has spoken at several platforms. Remember, last time when he was along with Macron in France, this was also something that he had spoken very categorically, and that was about equitable distribution. And it was that time that he had, in fact, welcomed Macron as well to India. And there you have, he's going to be arriving shortly. And this is literally India not just leading Global South, but clearly showcasing its prowess when it comes to positioning how India and the world is being watched when it comes to AI, given its tech and the other responsible initiatives that it has launched. Kabir?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Sneha. India not only talking about artificial intelligence, but now spearheading this entire moment. This is not just about a technological advancement, it's a strategic advancement, and India certainly is leading the way here. You named a long list of key attendees. Of course, Macron is a big name, Lula da Silva is a big name, but Sam Altman in India and, Google DeepMind CEO in India, that's going to certainly turn heads across the world.
Kabir, and these are not just tech giants, these are not just leaders who are leading these tech companies, and when it comes to several AI and the battle against deep fakes, as it were, these are also leaders who have been literally at loggerheads with each other. So you have had a lot of instances where these leaders have had to have questions, or their organizations have been in headlines about how there's been poaching from one organization to the other, about how they're being offered huge packages because they need to strengthen their AI teams and how the backends are working. But this is just one aspect of it, because, Kabir, at the heart of it, a lot of conversations are also going to be around employment. It's also going to be around data. It's about how jobs are being affected. And these are leaders who are not only leading the technical shift, as it were, but these are also people who are facing it right at the front. So it's going to be interesting mix of people who are there, one, who are at the heart of it, two, those who are steering their countries through this AI revolution, as it were. Big names, really, that we have been talking about. All of them present, many of them also already visible on our screens. We've been putting out these graphics as well. So interesting conversations, whether, the entire approach around how they have framed this around people, progress, and responsibility is something also, Kabir, I think that many across the world are going to be talking about.
Whenever Prime Minister takes on these platforms where there is convergence of all the global leaders, Sneha, he makes it a point to tell the world that the Global South is here to lead the world into this next phase of technology. So democratization of technology is something that the entire world is talking about, but ensuring that artificial intelligence tools reach all the segments of society, including rural, including the undeserved populations. This is really technology for humanity, and India does it better than anybody else.
Absolutely. In fact, a lot of initiatives of the government have been around this as well. This is where a lot of the private players and the governments have also come together, whether it be the state and the center, in partnership in trying to get AI accessible to the remotest part. And that's where you have farming. That's where whether it be space or whether it be farming, India is looking at getting AI technology in the core of its operations, and that's visible in many places. You just have recently about how you have the Andhra Chief Minister and the Telangana Chief Minister who have spoken a lot about this as well. India is looking at one of the largest data centers of the world to be set up in the south of India, and that is also something that is going to be harder. If it remember, whether it be Donald Trump, whether it be Emmanuel Macron, a lot of them have spoken about data centers, about data wars, and that of course opens up a lot of other questions around privacy, about sharing data, who owns this data, and so on and so forth. And I think platforms such as this that India is hosting is going to be having a very crucial conversation around it, Kabir. Conversations that one are looking at equitable distribution and two about responsible usage. At the time, Kabir, and another layer which really comes out at this point is also climate change. Most of the countries that will be attending are also leaders that are attending are also battling climate change in their own ways, whether it be European countries, whether it be Asian countries. And therefore, it's going to be important to see what conversations evolve around the AI footprints, as it were. That's also going to be very important to be seen.
No, you're absolutely right. When we talk about improving quality of life, that's again another aspect where India plays its big role. I do need to stress upon how India and the AI Impact Summit, its foundational pillars. You've already beautifully mentioned about how it's about people, planet, and progress, Neha. But let's talk about healthcare. When it comes to health tourism, India is right up there on the list. It seems like more footfall that will come towards India because this is about improving quality of life and advancing the public good. Societal changes. And climate change is a big thing that you just mentioned. So what else that's going to happen on that particular front? We already have robotic surgeons, that carry out these, quite hefty surgeries. How will AI impact and play its role when we talk about healthcare and health tourism in India?
Well, Kabir, that's interesting because one, let's just face it, I'm not an expert in this domain, but there's been a sea of change when it comes to how diagnostics is being done in India and the world for that matter, about how AI is at the heart of these diagnostics. And it's not just diagnostics, it's also surgery for that matter. It's about how AI is being used for diagnostics and surgeries, whether it be for cancer, to liver transplants, and to many other aspects that are seen as, very life-threatening challenges, really. AI, robotics being just one part of it, is already seeing transformational powers. The question really is, one, is in terms of accessibility. How much of that is accessible to people in general? And two, to those who cannot shell out a lot of money. And it's in conferences like this where India spearheads medical tourism, as you mentioned, whether it be centers in the south, depending upon the proximity to neighboring countries, whether it be Bengaluru, whether it be Thiruvananthapuram, whether it be up north. You, of course, have Delhi, the national capital, several referral institutes where many people from abroad even come down. These are questions that will be very widely discussed. And India obviously showcasing its advantage and prowess, because whether it comes to engineering or medical science, I think the world recognizes the talent pool that India boasts of, not only in terms of talent pool, but also in terms of competency, and showcasing that in terms of AI skills. It's no surprising that when it comes to the AI tech skill in terms of the engineering industry as well as the medical industry, India is ranked in terms of third for the pool, the talent pool, and that's a big number by itself. And that just shows where India is positioned and why so many countries are encouraging, keen, and batting for India really hosting this AI summit.
Sneha, you spoke about the talent pool, and agentic AI and automation is something that people are so profusely, involved with. Does that shrink India's traditional revenue base before our new talent pool actually comes to life and matures? That's completely different. I think we can wait when we come to that. But talk about the margins. Just a couple of days back, Niti Aayog put out a report. They said this $250 billion market is going to encapsulate $850 billion by 2035. Now, that's a major share. In terms of percentage, this is beyond 25% of global share. Now, when US and Chinese goods and artificial intelligence markets are leading the change, where does India now play its role? I think we've taken the right step, and this step is in the right direction with this new AI Impact Summit. So much that's lined up in the next few days, all those world leaders that are going to be here. But how far and long before we finally encapsulate more than that 25% of global share. We can do it, but how long do you think it's going to take? I know you're not an expert on this matter, but clearly you have your research to back it up.
Kabir, we'll have to see in terms of global positioning, because one, it's not just about the quantum in terms of the numbers, but it's also in terms of the expertise. Both are to the advantage of India. Because if you look at the United States, if you look at the European Union, if you look at even several other countries and the recent FTAs that have been signed, technological transfer and AI are at the core of it. Whether it be in defense, whether it be in medicine, whether it be in employment and jobs. So that also gives a sense of how India is positioning itself with respect to this. So in terms of numbers, how much of that will be able to back or contribute or, counter in terms of the ranking and the position, that's of course to be seen. But just for the sheer prowess that India boasts in terms of its numbers, population, in terms of its expertise, in terms of its contribution to employment and workforce, the white-collared workforce and, the niche representatives in the workforce across the world, it's just a matter of time, whether it be space, whether it be the tech sector. I think India is right there, and that's why you have such a huge response from even the tech leaders who are coming in at this point to India.
This entire reskilling roadmap that is actually needed, because for the longest time, Sneha, we've dependent on the head count that India not just gives back to its own countrymen here back at home, but also to the entire world, the cheap IT sector. That's where our head count matters the most. So when we're talking about retraining millions, and that too at speed, that's where AI comes. And this AI summit is also going to put and throw some light on that. Realistically creating faculty, realistically creating the right kind of infrastructure to cater to that appetite of retraining millions. And we're so good at it, and at that kind of speed. So massive R&D, that's coming our way for sure. Massive policy changes, that's also coming our way. And I think we do have the appetite to cater to all of this as well.
Absolutely, Kabir. In fact, what's also interesting is the content area, Kabir. Because a lot that India is boasting today in terms of content, whether it be script writing, whether it be films, whether it be books that are being written, across the world, is seeing a sea change. And India has a large repository of that. Just with the numbers, again, that India boasts of, the way all of this is being used in content is also going to see a sea change. So if you're talking about reskilling and about how India is positioned, all of this is going to be affected. And it's summits like this where a lot of this is going to be discussed as well, because it's not just hardcore tech which is being discussed. It's also a lot of sectors that get impacted with it. And therefore you have data warfare, as it were. You have AI war over data, as I said earlier. That's just one part of it, about how globally complex this entire issue is with who owns this, but also about how just the very aspects of daily life is being reshaped right now. How movies are being watched, how scripts are being written, how copyright is being looked at. And therefore you have even sessions at the AI India Summit that are going to be discussing all of that with leading voices from the global repository.
Very soon, according to Ashwini Vaishnav, the Union Minister, he says the government is going to launch Create in India mission. This will be an industry, employment and future-oriented mission. It will look at strengthening what we have, making sure we become the most preferred platform for the world and creating a future-ready talent pipeline. I think from restructuring, we're now talking about regularization and governance. And I think that's, again, the next step in the age of advent of artificial intelligence, Neha.
That's a very important part, because governance as well, Kabir, as countries have been discussing and as we have been witnessing, are twofold. One, about how a country really is governing itself in terms of accessibility to governance, in terms of how the governments are looked as fair distributors, and that has several contours in India. AI only increasing its reach in terms of accessibility to people, but also in terms of how approachable the government seems to be at this point. And that's really the transformative part at this point. Earlier, while it was just the schemes that would be looked at, AI now has ways of helping interpret data, reaching out to people. AI now transforms the large pool of data that was available to government to be able to look into aspects that earlier manually would be a Herculean task. So that just breaks down aspects of it. And you have Niti Aayog entirely focusing on AI as a tool of governance with a separate wing altogether. Government by itself, interdepartmental coordination with the use of AI is again something that it has been speaking a lot about. That being one part of it, but it's also about warfare. It's about strategic roles that countries are playing, about how they are positioning themselves globally. And that's where I guess India is being looked at very closely. And as I said earlier, this is a summit, a first of its kind that's being hosted in Global South. And that's where India also positions itself strategically, because many world heads have spoken about how India is critical to peace in the Indo-Pacific region. And India is the leader when it comes to that. So whether it be the Navy, Air Force, or even the Army prowess for that matter, AI again being extremely critical to it, about how the use of drones, about the use of communication, all of this is being improving. And at a time when the world has seen very sharp geopolitical changes across the world, across the global fronts, how India has managed to stand its ground, not only in terms of aligning or not aligning, but also in terms of how the use of tech and AI has been built on, is something that is being spoken across the world. In fact, you had the U.S. Defense Chief speak recently, and he has spoken just today, and he spoke about it's commendable how India showed restraint but technological acumen during the Operation Sindoor.
Yep.
And while he spoke that, it was a clear, it was yet another country talking about how India has been at the forefront of using AI for governance and for protecting one's sovereignty.
You're absolutely right. Operation Sindoor, I mean, all the surveillance that the naval, forces did, so much of artificial intelligence that was used on that particular front. Now, will AI create higher value jobs and at the scale that we're discussing, Sneha, or quietly compress employment in the IT backbone of, our middle class? The headcount that we've been talking about is, again, a debate for a later time. Right now, India, in a world where AI is guarded like strategic ammunition, so many people keeping it like top secret, India is making the brave and bold move of leading through collaboration. India is telling the world that it is ready to move from quote-unquote coding for the world, we give our high-end coders to the rest of the world, to now architecting AI systems for the world. And I think the first few steps are going to be Indian use cases and how AI can actually solve problems and make lives easy. The Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav, with the Prime Minister perusing all through those kiosks, we're bringing you live visuals from the Bharat Mandapam AISummit 5-day mega AI Impact Summit 2026. The Prime Minister has inaugurated this large and grand artificial intelligence festival.